The Naval Academy slept under the humid Virginia night, stars reflected on the still water of the Severn River. Inside the female barracks of Bravo Company, whispers spread like wildfire, the kind that set careers ablaze before they ever began. Cadet Elara Dane had just finished her evening run when she found her locker stripped bare. Her PT uniform gone. Her boots missing. Her Navy duffel emptied, even her ID left soaking in the sink. And taped to her mirror, a note scrawled in Sharpie. "You don't belong here, Princess. This is a SEAL prep division, not storybook camp." The laughter came next, muffled at first, then bold, echoing down the hall. Dane stood still. Not out of fear, out of calculation. She had served 3 years enlisted before being recommended for officer training. Most cadets around her came from legacy families, sons and daughters of admirals, senators, and decorated lineages. Elara? She was a machinist's kid from Idaho, a nobody with scars, not medals. But she had something they didn't. A history of getting up every time someone tried to bury her. A female cadet, brunette, smug, leaned against the doorway. "Rough night, Dane? Maybe next time don't mouth off about SEAL prep being too easy." Elara said nothing. She just held the other girl's gaze until the smirk faltered. The girl sneered, gesturing to the empty locker. "Welcome to the Navy. You'll learn your place soon enough." Elara took a step forward, her tone even. "And you'll learn yours the first time I'm the one giving orders." Laughter rippled again, but quieter now, uneasy. She walked past him, barefoot, on the cold tile, every step measured. She didn't rush, didn't yell, because rage wasted energy. And energy was ammunition. She didn't go to the quartermaster or file a report. That would have made her a victim. Instead, she walked through the night, across the academy's field, down to the dock where the bay met the training zone. The wind was cool, the moonlight reflected off the water like silver glass. She knelt, staring at her reflection. Her body bore bruises from last week's endurance trials, still healing. Her mind, sharper than ever. "They think taking my gear makes me small," she muttered. "They forgot what happens when you strip a soldier down to nothing." She turned toward the supply depot, the restricted section used for SEAL orientation drills. Unauthorized access meant expulsion. But she wasn't planning on accessing it. She was planning on owning it. At 0230 hours, the depot lights flickered as she bypassed the code panel with a stripped wire and a hairpin. It wasn't her first time breaking into a locked compartment. Back in her enlisted days, she'd learned every trick the deckhands knew. Inside, racks of training weapons and combat gear glistened under pale fluorescent light. Tactical vests, night vision units, rubberized rifles for dry fire drills. She found one locker labeled SEAL Phase Gear, Bravo Instructors Only. The lock was biometric. She stared at it, then smiled faintly. Guess we're past keycards. From her pocket, she pulled a small tube of silicone, left over from machine maintenance kits. She pressed her thumb into the pad, then coated it with the imprint. It wasn't perfect, but close enough. The scanner blinked. Access granted. The door swung open. Inside, a combat harness, full load-bearing vest, a training M4 carbine, non-live. SEAL camo fatigas, a patch with the trident insignia. She hesitated on the patch. It wasn't hers. Not yet. Then she placed it on her shoulder anyway. "You'll earn it twice, Dane," she told herself. "Once for them, once for you." 0430. Hours morning watch had begun. The same group of cadets who had stripped her locker were jogging across the quad when they stopped in disbelief. There she was, Elara Dane, marching out of the mist in full SEAL combat gear, boots heavy on the pavement, rifle slung across her shoulder like it belonged there. Her expression was unreadable. Her hair was tied back, eyes locked forward, cold, unflinching. "Morning, ladies," she said, voice steady. The brunette, the ringleader, blinked. "Where the hell did you get that gear?" "Where I'll get everything else they said I couldn't have," Dane replied. Another cadet snickered. "You realize that's restricted equipment, right? You'll be court-martialed before breakfast." Elara stepped closer, her voice dropping low. "Then I'll stand in that court wearing the same thing, because this uniform's the only thing I've ever respected enough to fight for." A beat of silence. Even the air seemed to hold its breath. She turned, continuing toward the obstacle course without waiting for permission. The obstacle yard was empty, just gray dawn and the cold clang of metal frames. She started the SEAL qualification circuit. Rope climbs, wall scales, burpees, mud crawls. No camera crews, no instructors, no applause. Just her, proving a point to herself. Her hands bled against the rope, blisters breaking open. Her knees hit gravel. Her breathing grew ragged. Still she climbed. Still she moved. Every flash of pain replayed the voices in her head.
You don't belong. You're not one of us. You'll quit.
She crushed each voice beneath another pull, another jump, another rep.
Hit that subscribe button,
she would have said if she could speak, so you never miss what happens when they tell a soldier she's not enough.
By the time the instructors arrived for morning drills, she had completed the entire course, alone under an hour. Captain Rhodes, the SEAL liaison for the Academy, approached with a slow clap. Cadet Dane, he said, you realize this facility isn't open to your level. She straightened. Permission to complete the exercise, sir. Denied. Then I already disobeyed it, sir. He studied her, mud-caked, exhausted, bleeding, but standing tall. What exactly were you proving? That the uniform doesn't make the operator, she replied. Discipline does. Rhodes's expression didn't change, but something in his eyes softened. You know, you just broke about 6 federal codes. Yes, sir? He nodded slowly and passed one test we don't advertise. By noon, the barracks buzzed with rumors. Did you hear? Dane went full Rambo in the obstacle yard. Captain Rhodes was watching. She didn't even get punished. They called her into SEAL liaison review. The girls who had stripped her locker now kept their distance. Their laughter was gone, replaced by a silence that came only when respect replaced ridicule. Elara didn't gloat. She didn't even speak. She simply cleaned her borrowed gear, returned every item to its rack, and walked out of the armory. But she left one thing behind, her cadet badge taped to the trident insignia. On the back, written in neat handwriting. If you're going to mock the uniform, at least know what it costs. That night, Captain Rhodes filed a report marked confidential. At the bottom, one line stood out. Candidate displays exceptional resolve and unorthodox initiative. Recommend temporary assignment. SEAL prep field test. Classify conditions. He stared at her photo for a moment, mud-streaked, eyes unyielding. Then he signed it. Approved. Elara Dane's real training was about to begin. The order came down at 0600. Elara Dane was to report to the South Annex Field Range, full combat gear, no briefing. Officially, it was disciplinary reassignment. Unofficially, no one knew what it meant. As she approached the decommissioned airfield, a single black SUV waited beside the cracked runway. The morning fog curled around it like smoke. The driver, a grizzled chief petty officer with mirrored sunglasses, looked her up and down. You're Dane? Yes, Chief. Good. You just volunteered for hell.
He opened the back door. Inside sat Captain Rhodes, the SEAL liaison who had caught her in the obstacle yard. His uniform was immaculate, his tone unreadable. Cadet, he said, get in. The SUV rolled across the abandoned tarmac. Rusted hangars loomed like hollow skeletons. Rhodes spoke without looking at her. Do you know why you're here? Because I broke into restricted storage, sir. He smirked faintly. True, but also because you did something 90% of candidates won't. You took initiative under humiliation. She frowned. Permission to speak freely, sir? Always. With respect, this feels like a setup. Rhodes glanced her way. It is, but not the kind you think. He handed her a sealed folder, stamped Training Unit 47B, classified Phase Black. Congratulations, Cadet Dane. You're being loaned to a covert evaluation unit. 3 weeks. No contact with the Academy. No record afterward. Elara studied the folder, heart hammering. What kind of evaluation? The kind that decides whether you're worth keeping in uniform. By noon, the SUV arrived at a remote compound deep in the Shenandoah wilderness. Tall fences. No insignia. Just an American flag and a line of gray-clad operatives jogging in perfect silence. Inside, a female gunnery sergeant, short, broad-shouldered, scar down her cheek, greeted her. "Welcome to phase, Black Cadet. Around here, there's no rank, no titles, no excuses. You'll address me as Gunny or not at all." "Yes, Gunny." "Good, let's get something straight. You're not here to win. You're here to survive. You want to earn the trident? You bleed for it." Elara met her gaze. "Bleeding's never been my problem." Gunny's expression flickered, a faint respect hiding beneath the grit. "We'll see." They stripped her down to combat fatigues and dropped her in a freezing tank, wrists and ankles bound, mouth taped. Gunny stood above with a stopwatch. "Phase Black begins now," she barked. Elara's lungs seized from the cold. Instinct screamed to fight, to flail. But SEAL training wasn't about panic. It was about surrendering control without surrendering will. She let herself sink. Her heartbeat slowed. She counted seconds. 10, 20, 40, 40. When her chest burned, she bent her knees, forcing her bound legs down to bounce off the pool floor, propelling herself back up for one stolen gasp through her nose. "Above," Gunny murmured to another instructor. "She's not panicking." "She should have quit by now." "She won't," Gunny said. "I've seen that look before." After 5 minutes, they pulled her out. Elara hit the deck coughing, but not gasping. She steadied her breathing, looked up, and said, "Permission to repeat the exercise, Gunny." Gunny smiled faintly. "Denied, Dane. You're not here to prove a point. You're here to learn when to stop." Elara looked her dead in the eyes. "With respect, ma'am, I'll stop when my pulse does." By the third day, the instructors had taken notice. Whispers spread across the bunkhouses. "Dane's the one who went rogue at Annapolis." "She's nuts," volunteered for the pit twice. Rhodes called her the most dangerous cadet he's seen. But there was another rumor, quieter. Some said Phase Black wasn't a punishment at all. It was a filter. Candidates who survived it didn't go back to the academy. They went somewhere else. At 0200, sirens wailed. The trainees scrambled into formation, eyes half open. Gunny's voice cut through the fog. "You have 5 minutes to gear up and hit the ridge. You're being hunted." Elara grabbed her pack, 30 pounds of sand, an unloaded carbine, and a compass that didn't point north. She led 2 other cadets through the trees, low and silent. Behind them, instructors fired blanks, simulating suppressive fire. The other cadet, Meyer, tripped and cursed. "We're going the wrong way." Elara crouched, studying the tree line. "Compass is rigged. Wind direction's our real guide. We go east, not north." "How do you know?" "Because Command wants us to panic, not to think." They moved under the moonlight, navigating through brambles and creeks until they found the rendezvous beacon, a single blue flare atop a ridge. Gunny was waiting. "Dane, report," she ordered. 3 cadets accounted for. 1 injury, no quitters." Gunny studied her a moment, then said quietly, "You were never supposed to find this beacon." "Then you shouldn't have lit it, ma'am." Back at the compound, Rhodes received Gunny's report. He read it twice before calling command. "She's beyond protocol," he said. "Instinctive, disobedient, brilliant." A cold voice replied over the line. "Then she's perfect for Phase 2. On day 7, they ran the Brotherhood drill. A psychological test. 2 cadets blindfolded, 1 given a weapon with a single blank round. "Your teammate failed to complete their assignment," the instructor said. "You will now administer expulsion." Elara's partner, Cadet Meyer, trembled. I can't." Elara took the weapon calmly, aimed just above his shoulder, and fired. The blank echoed through the hangar. The instructor's jaw tightened. "Why didn't you follow orders?" "Because leadership isn't obedience," she said. "It's knowing which rules to break." Silence. Then the instructor smirked. "Command will want to hear that." By the end of week 2, bruises painted her arms like campaign ribbons. Every night she fell asleep to the sound of wind, gunfire, and her own heartbeat whispering. "They stripped me down once. Now they'll watch what happens when I rebuild." Hit that subscribe button.
because the next time they tell her she's not SEAL material, she won't just prove them wrong. She'll make them remember her name. On the last night, rain pounded the compound. Elara sat in the mud, blindfolded, rifle balanced across her knees. Gunny approached silently. You've lasted longer than any cadet we've had, Dane, but tomorrow's not a test of endurance. It's a test of purpose. Elara lifted her head. Meaning? Meaning if you don't know why you fight, you'll fail before the first shot. Elara thought of the laughter in the barracks, the stolen clothes, the note calling her princess. Then she said quietly, I fight because they need people who remember what honor looks like when it's got dirt on it. Gunny nodded once. Then you're ready. At 0400, a helicopter roared over the compound. Rhodes stepped out, coat flapping in the rain. Pack your gear, Dane, he called. Your evaluation's over. Did I pass, sir? He gave her a long look. You survived. Around here, that's the same thing. He handed her a sealed envelope. On it, classified, Operation Night Fury. She opened it just enough to read one line. Deployment authorization, Tier 1 observation. Her pulse quickened. She wasn't being expelled. She was being activated. The rotors of the Black Hawk screamed over the storm-torn ridge. Inside, Cadet Elara Dane sat between two operators whose faces were hidden beneath NVGs. Her new insignia, no longer cadet bars, but a single unmarked patch, felt heavier than armor. Captain Rhodes leaned in, his voice barely cut through the roar. You're not here to observe, Dane. You're here to adapt. We lost contact with a recon team in the Carpathians. Satellite feed shows movement, not friendly. You're our replacement. She tightened the strap on her vest.
Understood, sir. Rules of engagement? Rhodes gave a thin smile. Stay alive, retrieve the beacon, extract what's left of them. The chopper dropped low through mist and lightning. Dane fast-roped into the darkness, landing hard on rock, slick with rain. Her boots sank into mud, her eyes scanning through green-lit goggles. 4 figures moved ahead. SEALs, silent weapons raised. One turned, offering a curt nod. No names. No chatter. Just mission. She wasn't a cadet anymore. She was a ghost in a borrowed war. The team advanced up the ridge, trees bent under the wind like dying sentinels. In the valley below, faint lights blinked from a collapsed village, their destination. The scene was carnage. Burned-out vehicles, broken walls. And in the center, the beacon, flashing red, half-buried under rubble. Dane knelt beside it, brushing off debris. Signal still transmitting. They were here less than an hour ago. A SEAL crouched beside her, voice flat through comms. Thermals picking up 6 hostiles, movement west of your position. Dane's instincts screamed. It was an ambush. She signaled silently, hand up, 2 fingers curved, flank left, suppress, breach right. The SEALs moved instantly, no hesitation. Gunfire tore through the storm. Dane dove into cover, returning controlled bursts. The muzzle flashes lit the rain like lightning. Then, silence. Smoke. And the sharp smell of ozone and cordite. In the ruins of a stone hut, Dane found a wounded SEAL slumped against the wall, blood pooling under him. Where's your team? She asked. He rasped. Gone. They took the officer, the one with the chip. What chip? He grabbed her sleeve with surprising strength. The command node, Night Fury's data key. Don't let them get it. Then his hand fell away. Dane closed his eyes, securing his tags. She whispered, Rest easy, brother. I'll finish it. Gunfire erupted again, this time from the northern ridge. 3 hostiles broke from the tree line, dragging a captive in SEAL gear. Dane sprinted after them through mud and fire. The ground shook with thunder, bullets tearing bark around her. One hostile turned to shoot. She dropped him with 2 clean rounds. Another vanished behind a collapsed tower. She followed, cornered him, and drove her knife under his vest plate. The last fled into the open field, dragging the wounded officer. She raised her rifle, but the magazine clicked empty.
Without pause, she holstered, sprinted, and launched herself forward, tackling both into the mud. They wrestled, brutal and silent, until she tore the data key from his vest and slammed her elbow into his temple. He went still. Breathing hard, she turned to the wounded SEAL. "Can you walk?" He coughed blood. You're the cadet." She smiled grimly. Not anymore. The flare ignited in her hand, blue flame cutting through the rain. Minutes later, rotor wash flattened the grass as the Black Hawk descended. Rhodes jumped out, scanning the field. "You got it?" She handed him the data key, intact. He looked at her, soaked, bruised, eyes burning with exhaustion and defiance. "Where's your weapon?" She pointed to the mud-covered rifle lying beside two downed hostiles. "Used it, didn't need it." Rhodes studied her a long moment, then said quietly, "Dane, you weren't supposed to make it out of this alive." She gave a weary grin.
Then someone should have told Death to train harder. Back at the compound, Gunny was waiting.
Elara stepped off the chopper, mud dripping from her uniform, the trident patch now sewn cleanly above her heart. Gunny crossed her arms. "You brought back 2 wounded, neutralized 8 hostiles, and recovered top-tier intel. Not bad for a cadet. Guess that means I'm reinstated?" Gunny smirked. "Reinstated? Hell, Dane. Command just signed your transfer papers." "To where?" Gunny tossed her a sealed folder stamped. U.S. Naval Special Warfare, SEAL Team 7. Elara caught it, eyes steady. "When do I start?" 10 minutes ago. A week later, the Academy held an unannounced assembly. The same cadets who once laughed at her now stood in silence as a lone figure approached the podium. Rhodes' voice carried through the hall. "Some of you mocked her, some of you tried to break her, but the Navy doesn't forge its warriors in comfort, it forges them in fire, and this woman walked through it." Elara stepped forward, saluting crisply. Rhodes pinned the trident to her uniform. "Welcome home, Operator Dane." Applause thundered, but she didn't smile. Not really. She simply looked out over the sea of stunned faces and said, "They took everything I had to test if I'd break. I didn't break. I rebuilt." Weeks later, in a forward operations base, somewhere off the Horn of Africa, a SEAL team geared up in silence. The new addition, call sign Echo 6, adjusted her helmet. One of the veterans looked her way. "You the rookie the Admiral keeps talking about?" She checked her rifle, chambered a round, and replied, "Not a rookie, just someone they underestimated." As they moved out into the night, someone muttered behind her, "Damn, that's the one they say came back in full combat gear." And through the comms, her voice answered softly, steady, cold, unyielding. "Then let's give them another story to tell."